She doesn't know about you. Or maybe she does, but refuses to see. Either way, you're not her. You're not the woman with the ring, the title, the official space in his world. You're the other woman, the second, the secret, the soul he visits when he forgets who he's supposed to be. And that's the beginning of the wound, because no one sees what it takes to be the second woman. No one sees how you carry love in silence, how you suppress questions that deserve answers, how you shrink your needs so he can stretch his limits. No one talks about the emptiness that comes with being loved halfway. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's what this is. Not fate, but a pattern, a repetition of a wound you haven't named yet. You didn't choose this role consciously. You fell into it. Or maybe you were pulled into it by the way he looked at you like you were water and he hadn't tasted truth in years. He made you feel seen, needed, different, and in a world where you've always had to prove your worth. That felt like enough. But over time, you began to notice the quiet ache, the way he pulled back when things got too deep, the way you only existed in the in-between hours, the way your connection, no matter how real, always came second to his obligations. And yet you stayed, not because you lacked strength, but because your soul recognized something in him that felt ancient and unfinished. You told yourself it was love. You told yourself it was rare. You told yourself it was just a matter of time. But time doesn't heal what keeps reopening, and love doesn't feel like waiting to be chosen. Real love never asks you to be invisible in someone else's life. Still, you stayed, because he made you feel more than others ever did, because he unraveled in your presence, because with you, he cried, he softened, he told the truth. You became the place where his mask fell, but also the place where he disappeared from once it was back on. You carried his secrets, held his fears, absorbed his emptiness, like it was your mission to fix it. And all the while, you began to lose pieces of yourself. The second woman is not just a role. She's a reflection of unhealed self-worth. She's the one who accepts being loved privately, hoping it will one day become public. She's the one who feels deeply, gives completely, and receives inconsistently. And it hurts, not just because he's unavailable, but because you know you deserve more, and yet you stay. You shrink your voice. You downplay your feelings. You turn your power into patience. And you call that loyalty. But loyalty to someone who is not loyal to your wholeness is self-betrayal. And the wound deepens. It shows up in small ways. You hesitate to speak up. You apologize for having needs. You flinch when someone says his name in public, afraid that the truth will catch up with the fantasy. And late at night, when your phone doesn't light up and your heart doesn't understand why, you sit in silence trying to convince yourself that you're okay with being almost loved. This is the wound, the invisible one, the one that bleeds without sound, the one that tells you this is the best you can have, the one that says your role is to heal, not to be held, to support, not to be seen, to wait, not to be chosen. But Jung would say this is the moment the soul begins to awaken. When the pain becomes unbearable, the psyche starts to seek wholeness. You start to ask new questions, not about him, about yourself. Why did you need to be the one who saves? Why did love feel safer in secrecy? Why does your worth feel tied to being needed instead of being honored? These are not small questions. They are doorways. They lead you into the unconscious patterns that shaped your story long before he arrived. Because the truth is, he is not the wound. He is the mirror. He reflected the parts of you that longed to be visible, to be chosen to be loved out loud, and even though his presence brought beauty and depth, it also exposed the parts of you that still accept half versions of love. The invisible wounds of being the second woman aren't just emotional, they are spiritual. They fracture the connection between your soul and your truth, and the longer you stay in a space where you are only partially seen, the more you disconnect from who you really are. You are not meant to be someone's escape. You are not here to carry the burden of his indecision. You are not here to be the soft place he runs to when life gets hard and then forgets when things go back to normal. You are here to be met, to be chosen, to be claimed, not in secret but in the light. And that starts when you begin to see yourself differently, not as the second woman, but as the one who finally said, "This is not enough." The first step is not to forget him, it's to remember you. The you that existed before this dynamic, the you that doesn't settle for half love, the you that doesn't wait to be validated by someone else's confusion. She's still in there. She's waiting not for him, for you to turn inward, to ask deeper questions, to feel the grief fully, and to let that grief become the fuel that sets You free because you were never just the second woman, you were the woman who learned the hardest way possible that you deserve to be first. Not in his life, but in your own asterisk. But healing from this doesn't happen overnight, because you're not just letting go of him. You're letting go of the version of yourself that accepted that kind of love. The version who thought she had to be silent to be safe. The one who believed that emotional crumbs were enough, because at least they felt real. It takes courage to admit that what felt like love was also rooted in pain, and even more courage to walk away from something that made you feel seen but never made you feel secure. You'll have moments where you miss him, where you replay the conversations, the softness, the connection, and wonder if you made it all up. But you didn't. What you felt was real. It just wasn't sustainable, because love, to be whole, must be mutual, must be open, must be willing. And no matter how deep the bond was, it cannot survive in the shadows of someone else's life. So now, you rise, not as the second woman, not as the story behind the story, but as the author of a new chapter, one where your heart is no longer on hold, one where your love is no longer hidden, one where you no longer confuse being chosen in secret with being loved in truth, because your worth is not defined by his absence, but by your decision to finally come home to yourself, and that, in the end, is what turns invisible wounds into sacred wisdom. If you've ever felt like the second woman and it left you emotionally exhausted, the Jung Method can help you understand why you keep attracting these patterns. Reconnect with your worth, your voice, and your emotional clarity. The link is pinned in the first comment. Now, let's go deeper, because this story isn't just about him. It's about you, about the places in you that still confuse love with sacrifice. The unspoken belief that if you hold on long enough, stay soft enough, love hard enough, then, one day, someone will choose you fully. Not just when it's convenient, not just when it's secret, but truly, completely, and in the open. That longing is ancient. It usually begins far before the man you fell for. It may begin in childhood, in the moments you had to compete for attention, or earned affection through silence, or learned that to be loved you had to be useful. Those early wounds become the architecture of your relationships. They form the blueprint of your self-worth. And the second woman is often not just the result of a moment. She's the echo of a pattern. The girl who was told to wait. The girl who was praised for being quiet. The girl who internalized the message that her role was to make others comfortable, even if it meant staying uncomfortable herself. So she grows into a woman who doesn't ask for much, who finds pride in being low maintenance, who accepts inconsistency because it feels familiar, who thinks, if I love him enough, he'll eventually see me. But the truth is, when love requires you to disappear, it's not love, it's survival. And you were never meant to survive inside someone else's story. You were meant to live inside your own. Yet breaking this pattern is not about shaming yourself. It's about meeting the part of you that stayed too long with compassion, not judgment. Because she wasn't weak, she was hopeful, and that hope was beautiful. But now, it needs to evolve. You see, real healing doesn't start with forgetting him, it starts with remembering you, the woman you were before you made yourself small to fit into someone else's world. The woman who had dreams, a voice, a path. The woman who deserves to be loved in full daylight, not behind closed doors. Carl Jung taught that every relationship, especially the painful ones, serves to reveal aspects of our unconscious. That includes the second woman. She is not just a role, she is a mirror. And the mirror is asking you to see yourself differently, not as second, not as hidden, but as sacred. The sacred woman doesn't beg to be seen. She becomes so rooted in her own presence that only those who are ready for her depth can remain. She doesn't compete, she doesn't chase. She knows her worth is not up for negotiation. And when she steps into that energy, everything changes. The second woman dissolves. The wounded girl integrates, and the full woman rises. That woman sets boundaries not to punish, but to protect. She no longer gives endless chances to someone who only shows up halfway. She doesn't shrink when someone pulls away. She expands. And in that expansion, she creates space for love that is clean, conscious, and reciprocal. You don't need to be the woman he escapes to. You need to be the woman he cannot reach unless he rises to. You need to be the storm he cannot stand beside unless he's willing to stand in truth. And yes, that will mean being alone for a while. It will mean walking away from what feels good temporarily but hurts permanently. It will mean grieving not just the man, but the illusion, the fantasy, the potential that never became reality. But on the other side of that grief is your power, the kind that cannot be taken, because it no longer comes from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. It comes from recognizing that your time, your energy, your body, your love, they are not rewards for someone's inconsistency. They are gifts, and they are sacred. So the next time someone tries to pull you back into being the secret, the shadow, the afterthought, remember this: you are not second. You are the lesson. You are the mirror. You are the line in the sand between who he was and who he would have to become to meet you in the light. And if he can't rise to meet you there, let him stay in the comfort of his patterns, because you, finally, have broken yours. You are no longer the woman who waits. You are the woman who walks, not away from him, but back to yourself, fully, fiercely, finally. But even as you rise, the pain doesn't vanish overnight. You still carry the echoes of every moment he made you feel special, only to leave you unspoken the next day. You still remember how your body would tense in both excitement and fear each time his name appeared on your screen. You still wake up some mornings missing the version of yourself who believed it might all work out. That is the paradox of healing. It's not linear. It doesn't erase the memory. It teaches you how to stop making the memory your home. Because being the second woman doesn't only hurt because of him. It hurts because of how much of yourself you gave without receiving anything solid in return. It hurts because you kept hoping that love would be enough to make him change, to make him choose. It hurts because your heart was real, even if the situation wasn single quotes d. And so your healing must be just as real. It must come from depth, not distraction, from silence, not noise, from honoring what was true in you, even if it was never met with truth from him. There will be days you'll want to reach out, not because you want him back, but because part of you still craves closure, still wants to feel seen by the person who once made you feel like the only one in the room. But now you understand. Real closure doesn't come from someone else's mouth. It comes from your decision to stop reopening the door. It comes from the moment you say, I choose peace over potential. I choose clarity over chaos. I choose love that includes me, not love that uses me to fill a temporary void. You were the second woman, yes, but now you are something else. You are the woman who saw herself clearly for the first time and realized that her value was never meant to be a secret. You were never meant to be hidden. You were never meant to live in the quiet corners of someone else's indecision. You were here to be loved fully, to be spoken of with pride, to be met in truth, to be chosen not because he's lonely, but because he is ready. And until that man shows up, you will walk alone but not empty. You will walk with every piece of your soul returning to you stronger, wiser, and finally, whole.